Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I will be bringing guys my post free agency 2022 NFL mock draft for the Washington Commanders. It will be the full 7 rounds, so make sure you guys stay tuned for the whole mock draft. If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content. I'm on the road to 7,500 subscribers, so please help me get there. Also hit that like button and turn on those notifications so you never miss a video, and go ahead and follow my Twitter, trying to get to 1,000 followers on there. Now let's get right into the mock draft. Okay, so we are about a month away from the NFL draft, and things are going to start to heat up in terms of draft rumors. A lot of mock drafts are going to be coming on the channel in the next few weeks, and free agency isn't over, and obviously we can sign any player until the next season is over, but it's starting to settle down. There's going to be ways. Washington, of course, is not done. They're still going to sign some other guys, but for the most part, like most of the big name guys are gone, and we're starting to move on to the draft. And after the draft, there'll be even some more movement in terms of free agents. But of course, the Washington Commanders have the 11th pick in the draft, and there's a lot of different things they can do in this draft. They can stay put at 11, take the best player available. They can trade back. There's a lot of different things that they can do. This will just be a normal, mock draft. I'm not going to be trading back, but I will be doing a trade back mock draft in the next couple weeks. So stay tuned for that. So at 11, again, a lot of different things they could do. I would like, if they can, to trade back and get a receiver later, but if not, then you can take the best player available. You look at the receivers right here. There are some solid receivers. Jameson Williams, who I like. I just think the injury is going to bring him down a little bit in terms of where he gets drafted, but I do like the player. Garrett Wilson is my number one receiver in this class. I would definitely consider taking him at 11. Drake London's another one of the top receivers. He's probably going to go, pretty high, just like Garrett Wilson. Like, one of those two might not be there at 11 when we're drafting. Those guys are the top guys. You got Chris Olave, Burks as well. They're all going to be first round receivers, and I'm going to try to switch it up a little bit, because in all my mock drafts, basically, I've taken a receiver, or before we traded Carson Wentz, I did a quarterback. So I'm going to change it up right here, and you look at the big board, the best overall player is Ahmad Gardner, or Sauce Gardner. A lot of people call him the cornerback from Cincinnati, and I'm going to go ahead and take him. And I know cornerback is not a huge position of need, but there are very few lockdown corners in the NFL. Off the top of my head, you can say Jalen Ramsey, Jair Alexander. There's some, Xavier Howard. There's others, of course, that I'm missing, but there's very few elite cornerbacks, and elite cornerbacks are extremely valuable. I mean, you saw what the Rams had to trade for Jalen Ramsey. They had to give 2 first round picks and like a 4th round pick, and had to pay for him, and that's just a cornerback. Think about, that's very close to quarterback, compensation for a cornerback. Cornerback is a very, very important position, and we have solid cornerbacks. I like Kendall Fuller. He's a solid cornerback, and I like William Jackson. He has the potential to be a good cornerback. We'll see what he does in year 2, but you can never have enough good corners, and I think Sauce Gardner has the chance to be not only a good corner, an elite lockdown corner. I mean, we're going to get into his stats. They're absolutely amazing. He's about 6'3", 190 pounds. You look at some of his, fits. He's more of an outside corner. His scheme fit is zone, and we run more zone, so that is the perfect fit right there. You guys can see some of it, some of the scouting on him. I haven't watched much film, but a lot, read a lot about him. He's gotten a decent amount of interceptions over his career. Let's look at the stats before we read the scouting report. So this past year for Cincinnati, had 40 total tackles, 3 sacks, a forced fumble, and 3 interceptions. Had 3 interceptions every single year of his career at Cincinnati. And you might say, well, that's not a lot of interceptions. Well, it's hard to get a lot of interceptions when they barely target you. So some advanced stats, Ahmad Gardner allowed 0.1 yards per coverage snap this year. That is absolutely insane. And you look at this stats, even more incredible. He didn't allow more than 13 yards to any receiver in a single game this past season. He also didn't allow a touchdown in his entire college career. Those are absolutely insane stats right there. Like 3 full years, and I'm assuming he started all those years and didn't allow a single touchdown, and this year no more than 13 yards to a single receiver, and he was going up against elite receivers. Like in the college football playoffs, he went against Jameson Williams and Mechie for a little bit and was still locking these guys down. He is an elite shutdown corner, and I think that's what he'll do in the NFL. I mean, Derek Stingley is another guy that's going to go high. I think he might be more talented than Gardner, but Gardner literally has 0 red flags. Like he's a safe player that is going to, at the very least, be a good cornerback in the NFL. If everything, if nothing crazy happens, he's going to be a good cornerback in the NFL. He has a very, very high floor and still has a very high ceiling. Like I think he can still be an elite. I think he can be a top 3, top 5 cornerback in the league. And if you can get that and you're at 11, you can get that, that would be a really good pick to make. He's a good tackler. He's a very, very smart player. A lot of pass breakups and not too versatile, mostly as an outside guy. And he's solid against the run as well. Like he can get you some tackles as well. He's a much better tackler in my opinion than Derek Stingley. So I like him over Derek Stingley because he's been elite the last couple years, was the best corner in college football this past season, doesn't really have any red flags, and I think taking him at 11 would be a great pick for the Washington Commanders to make. So want to switch it up a little bit for the first round. Instead of taking a receiver, I will take a cornerback. And if they do that, then maybe they can switch Kendall Fuller to the inside and have William Jackson and Gardner on the outside, or they can be creative. Jack Del Rio can be creative. Now let's get into the next pick. Okay, so now for our second round pick, I'm going to try to make these a little bit quicker because the last one went on for way too long, about 5 minutes. So this pick right here, I think receiver has to be the pick. If you're not, taking a receiver at 11, I think you got to take one at 47 unless you made a big move on draft night or before that trading for a veteran receiver. I think we do need another receiver. Don't know if Curtis Samuel is going to be healthy. Hopefully De'Ami Brown takes a big step, but we don't know that. So I think taking a receiver here is the right move. Christian Watson is a great player, super quick. George Pickens, I think he is slept on. I think actually a lot of people really like him, but I think he's going to be one of the better receivers in this class. And I really like David Bell as well. So I don't think you can go wrong with any of these three. I'm going to take George Pickens. Haven't taken him in any of these drafts so far. You guys can see some of the scouting report on him. About 6'3", 200 pounds, so that big outside receiver that we need. And ideally, if you draft him, you have him and Terry on the outside and Curtis Samuel in the slot, and then you can switch them around. You can put Terry in the slot sometimes and Curtis on the outside. George Pickens had obviously that ACL tear, I believe, in 2021, which really hurt him and forced him to miss most of this year. But he's a big guy, ran a 4.47 40-yard dash. So not super quick, but still pretty fast for his size. Is amazing at those contested catches, gets a lot of touchdowns in the red zone, and has a big catch radius for sure. We're going to go ahead and take him. We'll look at his stats real quick, and then we're going to move on to the next pick. So 2019 had 727 yards, 8 touchdowns, and then 2020, of course, had that, I believe, the injury at the, I'm not sure when he had the injury, but I know it really hurt him this past year. Had 36 catches for 513 yards in 2020, and this past season was sidelined for most of the year because of that ACL injury, but he did fight back and was back in time for the playoffs and had a big 50-yard catch to really help the Bulldogs win. So, I think he's a solid player. You do have a little bit of that risk because, he has a prior injury, but I think that injury or that risk is worth the reward. So I think the risk is worth the reward. I think he's, he reminds me a little bit of AJ Green. Obviously not as good, but he could be similar to him in the NFL, and getting someone like that with that type of upside in the second round is a good pick in my opinion. Now on to the next round. So now on to the fourth round pick, because again, we don't have a third round pick because of the Carson Wentz trade. So maybe we can try to trade back, or just somehow try to get some of those assets back. But if not, we're going to be here in the 4th round, and I really think we need another linebacker. I mean, we didn't take one in the first, which I think was a good move. I mean, you're sitting there at 11. I don't think it's a linebacker worthy of being, picked at 11. And it's not a good look to draft 2 linebackers in a row, back to back in the 1st round. And then in the 2nd round, I really think we needed a receiver, and we took Pickens. So in this scenario, you're going to have to, sign. Hopefully they still have a month until their draft. So there's still some really good linebackers that they can sign in free agency. And I would still try to, recoup some of those assets so you can, have some more picks to spend on, a linebacker type. But right here, not really any linebackers, in my opinion, worthy of being taken in the 4th round, especially where we're drafting. I think Alec Lindstrom, who I have drafted a few times, would be a good pick right here. About 300 pounds, 6'3", can play center, can play, both guard positions. So he has that position flex, of course, that Ron Rivera absolutely loves. And, he can be some depth for, Chase Roulier, could help him if he's still out this year, but I think he will be good. And we have Tyler Larson, but he can also be at a depth piece on that, those 2 guard positions, and potentially even start if he's looking really good right away. Because these, interior offensive linemen, most of them can play all 3 positions, especially if they already play center, they can play left guard and right guard for sure. You guys can see some of the, some of the scouting report on him, but I think he would be a solid fit here because we do need some, more guard depth, and he brings that. So that's why I'm taking him with our 4th round pick. So now on to our 6th round pick. Again, we don't have a 5th round pick because we traded for Cameron Cheeseman last year. So right here in the 6th round, again, would love to take a linebacker, but no great linebackers available. I love Verone McKinley out of Oregon. I think he can be a really good safety in this league, or a really good, backup, and eventually maybe be a good starter in this league. But I've been taking him in a lot of mock drafts. Kind of want to, vary it up a little bit, mix it up. And I think I'm going to take Haskell Garrett out of Ohio State. We still need some depth on the interior of this, defensive line after losing Tim Settle and losing Matt Ioannidis. His scheme fit is kind of that 4-3 defense. Of course, that's what we run. And whenever I watch Ohio State, especially the last few years, I always saw him get to the quarterback the last couple years. Has been playing there for 5 years. First couple years didn't really do much. 2019, 2020, 21 is when he really started playing well. This past season, had 5.5 sacks. Was really a disruptive force for that defensive line, and has that chemistry with Chase Young, can play in the interior, about 6'2", 300 pounds. So he's definitely got the NFL body. Maybe, could put on a little bit more weight, but I think he is fine, and I think he would be a really good pick here. I always liked what I saw from him when I watched Ohio State, and, he doesn't have to play right away, of course. He's going to be a developmental guy. I still think, though, they need to sign a veteran, because you can't have your best, your backup be a 6th round rookie. Maybe he can be good, but you need some insurance, and I would definitely sign another veteran, maybe like Star Lutulelli or Akeem Hicks, who I prefer. So now on to our 2 7th round picks. So now on our first 7th round pick, and I think running back is definitely a pick here that we could make in with one of our 7th round picks. I think adding, the late rounds, 5th to 7th round, that's where the sweet spot is for running backs. So many, good running backs in the NFL are drafted in these late rounds, or even undrafted free agents. There's a running back here that I really, really like, one of my sleepers. I watched him in the Senior Bowl absolutely ball out, and a couple games at Baylor that I really liked from him, and that is Abram Smith from Baylor. I mean, you watch him at the Senior Bowl, he was probably one of the best players there. 5'11", 221 pounds, so he's that big back that you want to pair with Gibson, that if, Gibson goes down, you can have Abram Smith take over some of the carries along with Patterson and let McKissick be that true 3rd down back. This past year, 257 rushes for 1,600 yards, 12 touchdowns, 6.2 yards per carry, had 13 catches for 75 yards, but I think he can catch the football. They just didn't use him that much. I have no idea. Like, I haven't really been studying these late round guys. I thought he was going to be be much higher than this on the big board. Like, I thought he was going to be kind of a fourth, maybe, in that fourth round range, but I guess a lot of, these draft experts don't like him, but I would not be surprised if he was drafted sometime in like the 5th round versus the 7th round. But Abram Smith, I think, is going to be a sleeper in this league, and I think he would fit perfectly with what Washington needs at the running back position. Okay, so now with our last pick in the draft, I think we got to at least take one linebacker. It is a little bit too late, but I think taking a linebacker here would be a good idea. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not an expert on, I don't know really any of these guys, just heard of a couple from watching college football, but the best rated linebacker is Chance Campbell out of Ole Miss, and you read the scouting report on him, he's a, inside linebacker. That's what they project him to be at the next level. His best fit is 4.3, but it can also play 3.4 as well. So I'm going to go ahead and take him. You look at some of his stats real quick before we wrap up the video. 100 plus tackles this past year, 6 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, no interceptions, and played at Maryland the few years before that. So some of you guys might be familiar with him. And yeah, I think linebacker is a pick we should have probably made earlier, but it just really, after taking Sauce Gardner at 11, it really never made sense to take a linebacker after that. The board just didn't fall to us. But let's go ahead and look at our picks. I'm actually very, very happy with this draft right here, getting the best cornerback prospect at 11, then getting a really a good receiver who can has elite talent. We'll see if he can put it on, put it all together. A good solid interior offensive lineman in the 4th. Then we got a good interior defensive lineman, and then a sleeper running back and a solid linebacker. So I'm really happy with this draft. If this does happen, it just means that they have to be aggressive in getting a veteran middle linebacker. So maybe pay some money for Bobby Wagner. If not, go for someone like Alexander Johnson or some other guys that are out there. So really appreciate you guys watching the video. Let me know what you guys think about this draft, and comment down below any mock draft ideas you guys have. Peace.